Hi writers, the purpose of this video is to talk you through outlining the final paper and completing the final paper outline assignment. So before we begin talking about the requirements for this outline assignment, remember to take a look at the paper number 3 or the final paper assignment sheet. That assignment sheet tells you that this paper will have several sections. Each of those sections will probably include a heading and then more than one paragraph in each section. The sections of a problem solution research paper tend to be an introduction, that's going to be 1 or 2 paragraphs. The introduction will include an engaging intro to the issue, as well as your thesis at the end of the introduction. A section on the causes of the issue, or if you're talking about some sort of historical situation, perhaps the history of the issue. You do want to keep the history and the causes somewhat controlled, so you don't want to go into ancient history. You want the most immediate history of the issue. A section detailing the effects of the issue or the significance of the issue. A section detailing a well-researched solution that you are proposing to the issue, focusing on one main part of the solution. At some point in your paper, you do need to make sure you have included a counterclaim or opposing perspectives, although keep in mind it doesn't always come right here, right before the conclusion. It should go where it makes the most sense in your paper. For example, you might find a source or two that disagree about the causes of your issue, or perhaps you find a source that disagrees about the impact, or you may find a source that agrees the solution is a good idea, but it's too expensive and we need to find another way. Wherever those voices make the most sense in your paper, that's where you will put the counterclaim. If people disagree about the causes, you'll nestle that counterclaim in that section. If they disagree about the solution, you'll nestle it in that section. You do just want to make sure that you've shown that you've fully researched the paper from all sides. Finally, the paper will, of course, end with a conclusion, generally just one paragraph. In the conclusion, we usually think about audience and purpose. We might include a call to action. The audience should have a sense of how the issue matters to them and what they should do to support moving forward in a positive way. So your outline needs to include all of these sections, and it also needs to be an outline. So an outline generally lists the main points that you will cover, and then underneath each main point, you will list supporting details and evidence. In an outline, we use phrases rather than fully written paragraphs, fully written sentences. The phrases are just a reminder to you of the information that you will cover in each of those sections. The outline assignment also includes a place for you to note your sources. Because this is a longer research paper and thorough research is the goal, each section and most of your paragraphs in this paper should include more than one source. One key requirement for this paper is synthesis, which is your ability to use information from multiple sources. Readers generally don't accept one piece of evidence as proof of anything or one source as proof of anything. So be sure to note in the assignment where you will list the sources that you intend to use in each section and each paragraph of the paper. So at a bare minimum, each section will probably include a few main points stated as phrases. With underneath, you can either use numbers, you can use Roman numerals, you can use simple bullet points, more than one detail or evidence to support each main point. This is an example of what a good detailed outline may look like, and this is in the effects section. So you can see here this student example listed 3 main types of effects. So in this effects section, she would have at least 3 paragraphs, which is good. And then you can see ecological impacts is sort of a general or broad phrase, not a series of sentences. And then underneath, these are actually sentences, but they don't go into a lot of detail. They just say the supporting evidence. What are the ecological impacts and how does that happen? What are the economic impacts? And then you can see over here in sources to include in this section, they've just listed the last name of the sources that they found that they will remind themselves to pull in to discuss these. Generally, though, since this is a 3-paragraph section for the student, they would probably want to have more. So this could just be a sign that we maybe have a little bit of a research gap. Perhaps we need to research a little bit more about some of these impacts so that we make sure we have enough sources to talk about these impacts in a thorough way. Here's an example of what your outline should not look like. You can see here on the left, they've just written paragraphs. An outline is not paragraphs, it's an outline. The goal of an outline is to plan the structure of your paper and the content of your paper, not to go ahead and write everything out. So your outline should not include pre-writing in paragraphs. It should not include a lot of, complete sentences strung together in paragraphs. It should not be pre-writing or a rough draft. They do have a nice list of sources over here, and I like that they included the links. That'll make it very easy for them to type out the paragraphs and incorporate sources. They can just click the links straight into their sources. So this works as well for the source section, but this is not an outline over here on the left, so this would not earn points. This is also not quite what we're looking for. So this is an outline. You can see we have the bullet points with the main ideas and then the sub points underneath. However, this is not really saying what the student plans to include in each section. So we have policies that exist, but then just questions. How are they enforced? Who follows them? Whose idea? Who uses them? Your outline shouldn't really include questions like this because the outline is the information that you are planning to include, not the questions you still need to research, but the information you plan to include. So this one would also not quite receive full credit for the outline assignment because it doesn't include the actual information the paper would include. This one's also not quite what we're looking for. You can see this is a whole section of causes. A problem started from human interaction spreading the species. Here we just have 3 points. There are no sub points here. So we can't really tell, would this be a paragraph? If so, what evidence would come in this paragraph? Or would this all be in one paragraph? If so, what's the main idea versus the sub points? So there's not that clear hierarchy that we expect in outlining. They also only have one source for this section. That's of concern because the causes section, again, that's one of the major sections of the paper. You'll probably need at least 2 paragraphs to talk about causes. They're going to need more clear paragraph delineation and some more sources to help them talk about this section. Again, here is a good example of what an outline should look like. So as a reminder, we have clear main points and clear sub points. We have a thorough outline, so significant detail, more than 1 paragraph planned for the major sections of the paper. Sources are listed by last name, which is a fine way to do it. There are multiple sources for this section planned. If, as you're doing your outline, you find you probably don't have enough sources for some of these sections, that's just a clue to you that you need to continue doing research. Research isn't a one-and-done process. It is a recursive process, which means we keep coming back to research all throughout the writing process. So to take a look at the assignment here and what it will look like, this is an example of what your assignment might look like. Over here is the thesis. This is a very large box, but remember your thesis is only 1 to 2 sentences. It's just large because I needed a reminder here of what your thesis might look like. So you can take a look at these templates and see how the thesis includes your stance on the issue, clearly identified issue, some should or need to language that shows you're making a claim that's arguable or debatable. And also the proposed solution is a part of the thesis as well. So your thesis will come over here. If you'd like to, you can color code it just to make sure you have all the components. Since this is a problem solution paper, the thesis needs to represent the problem and the solution. There are some reminders here of instructions for this assignment. Please read these reminders very carefully to make sure that you get full credit for your outline. A reminder of the basic structure here, and then we have paper section number 1. So here for the introduction, you do want to outline your plan for the introduction. The questions up here in each section should not just be answered in a row here in the outline. So what I do not want you to do is see, the first question, how did this problem begin? And say, number 1, this problem began, and then answer the question. Number 2, why is this problem happening? Happening because, That is not the intention of these questions. These questions should not be answered in a list. These questions just remind you of things that you might want to cover in this section. It would sound really artificial and strange if your outline just followed these questions in a row. It would be repetitive and redundant and disorganized. So just use these questions to remind you of what you might want to cover in this section of your paper. Remember as well the causes, the evidence of the problem or the effects, and then the solution section. At least all three of these sections will include multiple paragraphs. So you're going to want to plan out paragraph number 1 is going to be about this. I'm going to have 2 main ideas, maybe 3 pieces of evidence. And then paragraph 2. So I'll have my main idea here. Here's my evidence I plan to use. And then here I'll note my sources. They can be links, they can be the author's names and the title of the source, whatever works for you. But the better you do on this outline, the easier writing the paper will be. I hope this helps, and as always, let me know if you have any questions. Good luck.